You're a new game developer looking for the type of game you want to make. You have a bit of a storyline as well as some characters in your head, but you're not sure what genre this would all fit into. How hard can it be? You just need to decide between platformer, RPG, and a couple of other subgenres. At least that's what you think, until you find an article titled 49 Video Game Genres and Subgenres, and everything suddenly seems too complicated to handle. Don't worry, in the research for this video, I've been there too, and hopefully by the end of it, we'll all have some answers. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Fireside Chat. Today is the 4th in our 5-day countdown to the first Pyramber Studios live stream. After all this time waiting, it's hard to believe that tomorrow my live streaming dreams will be coming true. We'll be playing The Uncle Who Works for Nintendo and Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. If you enjoy horror games, make sure to tune in. But enough of that, let's get to today's topic, video game genres. It's amazing and terrifyingly overwhelming how many genres and subgenres there are. The quest that started out as a basic platformer versus RPG has since expanded into a 50-sided monstrosity. To be clear, by genre I'm talking about the type of game, not the horror, mystery, and drama used to classify books and movies. While many sites disagree on what the main genres are, I will be focusing on what I believe are the 7 major types of video games: action, adventure, strategy, RPG, puzzle, sports, and simulations, and each of their subcategories. Technically, any storyline or idea can fit with any type of game, and sometimes odd pairings make for an innovative gameplay experience. Still, there are certain pairings that make more sense and have greater potential for success. It is these combinations that I'll be focusing on today. First up is action, a broad category that fits many types of games. Under this category are platformers, shooters, fighting games, beat-em-ups, stealth games, survival games, and MMOs. The key similarity between each of them is that they focus on an action-filled experience for the player, usually involving attacking enemies of some kind. Many of these pair best with succinct storylines, such as an opening cutscene, a few in the middle, and closing cutscenes. The story here should just be putting the action in motion, but not be made the emphasis of the game. Think of a typical Mario platformer, which has an opening and closing cutscene, but not much in between. If your storyline is pretty simple and could be moved along easily by a few scenes, then this category is for you. Next up is adventure. This category has 5 subcategories: text adventures, graphic adventures, visual novels, interactive movies, and real-time 3D games. These may sound unfamiliar to you, so I'll go over them first. Text adventures are mostly things of the past, essentially a choose-your-own-adventure novel which allows for player input through the keyboard. Graphic adventures take the form of your everyday point-and-click game. However, early games used images to add to the previously stated text-based adventures. Visual novels are more complicated versions of the former 2 subcategories, using pictures, text, and choices to create a cohesive storyline, usually with many alternative endings. This is a very popular genre in Japan. Nearly 70% of computer games released in Japan are visual novels, an astonishing number when you think about it. An interactive movie is another genre of the past, where the player would trigger pre-recorded live-action or animated scenes in order to progress in the story. Dragon's Lair is the most famous example of this subgenre. This evolved into the final subcategory of adventure games, real-time 3D games. These are exactly what you would think them to be: a player-controlled character walking around a 3D environment, interacting with things and slowly unraveling the storyline. These genres pair perfectly with a well-thought-out and deep storyline, a contrast from adventure games. Another 2 subgenres, Metroidvania and survival horror, find a spot somewhere between action and adventure, and therefore become action-adventure games. These guys find a balance of gameplay and story emphasis, which makes them a really good genre to default to if you're unsure of what to do. Next up is role-playing games, which make up a good amount of the subgenres I'll be talking about today. First, these games are divided into Western RPGs and Japanese RPGs, which you likely know by its abbreviation, JRPG. After this, they can be divided into several categories: action RPGs, MMORPGs, tactical RPGs, sandbox RPGs, roguelikes, games that take after Rogue, a dungeon crawler from 1980, and first-person party-based RPGs. The last category is when you play as the leader of a party in first person, but cannot see your party, aside from the occasional weapon, leg, or arm. Games of this genre are referred to as blobbers because all party members move as a single unit and are crammed together into a blob. Being a highly story-driven genre, it is a must that the storyline is rich and fulfilling. These games almost always have some form of fighting, so it's also important that battles make sense in the context of your game. Another genre is strategy, which boasts 7 subcategories: civilization, or 4X games, that generally follow the goals of explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate; artillery games, which is just a broad term for turn-based battle games, usually with a military aspect; real-time strategy and real-time tactics games; MOBA games; tower defense games; turn-based strategy and turn-based tactics games; and war games. You may have noticed a contrast between the use of tactics and strategy. In this case, tactics focuses on battle, tactics, and warfare, in contrast to the greater emphasis on resource management that strategy has. These games have a range of storyline use, but usually hover around the middle ground. Not too much storyline, but not story barren either. A major exception would be in the case of lore, with which this genre can be loaded. The last 3 genres of games have much lesser effect on the storyline, so I'll go through them much quicker. These genres are simulation, sports, and puzzle. Simulation games rarely have any story at all, and often rely on the player making their own story. Subgenres for this category include construction and management simulation, life simulation, and vehicle simulation. Likely, if you have a story in mind, a simulation game will not fit the bill. Sports games tend to be the same way. Sports subgenres include racing, team sports, competitive sports such as esports, and sports-based fighting. Some notable exceptions are expedition modes, which can be set up with a fair amount of storyline, and rich lore in the esports department, such as Overwatch. The last genre I'll be talking about today is puzzle games, which has a measly 2 subgenres: logic puzzles and trivia. In the storyline department, this category is the most lacking yet, aside from the occasional expedition mode, which might have a cutscene or 2. If you have a brilliant puzzle in mind, but want to apply it to your storyline, you could add the puzzle as a minigame in an RPG. All that being said, it's important to go with your gut. As I said before, it's the odd combinations that result in truly new and interesting gameplay. You can also manipulate a genre to fit your game, or even combine genres to perfectly set the stage for your story. In this case, creativity pays off. And with that, just remember, we didn't start the fire, we just keep it burning. Thanks for watching.